Hi, rodafleming in the Philippines here. Now, a wee while ago, a couple of weeks I think, maybe 3, before this most recent load of dog poo landed on my head, I posted a thing about self-ideation and looking at self-ideation through 3 different well-known conditions. And self-ideation, just to start off with, is not really self-awareness. Self-awareness is kind of an awareness of yourself in context, right, in your relationship to the world around you. But self-ideation is really who are you, what exactly you personally are, sort of out, not outside of that, but in a kind of separate from that. It's your own idea of yourself rather than your awareness of your interaction with the world around you. That's how I see it anyway. And the 3 conditions we want to look at this through, or we did, and I'll put up the link to the article that discusses it, but I just expand on it here. We're borderline, dark triad, and autogynephilia. And they illustrate self-ideation in very, very different ways. The first one, borderline. Borderline has a completely shattered self-ideation. It's so vague and weak and fluid. The person doesn't know who they are. They might know who they are right now, but in 10 minutes, it's not the same person. They're someone else, because I said in my article that it's like, if you looked in a mirror, that's me in the mirror, and then you threw it on the floor and shattered it, it's 100 pieces, and you look down at that, oh, which one of those is me? And that's what someone with borderline is faced with all the time. And it's also important to say that, by the way, borderlines are not generally malicious. I mean, they do terrible things sometimes, but they're not malicious. They're not psychopaths. They have real regret for the things that they do that upset other people. They feel angst, they feel regret, they feel responsible for what they do, but they can't help themselves doing it, because the person feeling responsible for a particular act, it's not actually the same person as did it. Or it's like a facet, like the chandelier, and there's all facets on the glass. You're not quite sure which one is you, and it's kind of like that. That's what a borderline is like. They're dangerous. They're dangerous in that they can cause a massive disruption to other people's lives. I mean, just massive. But it's not really their fault. They have a serious condition. It's a very unpleasant one, and for people with borderline, I have a great deal of sympathy. I have said in the past that men should not get involved with women with borderline, and vice versa, by the way. It's not a sexist thing. And that's absolutely true. They have to mend themselves first. They can't just enter someone else's life and then turn it absolutely upside down. Just like that. That's not on. You can't do that. So that's your borderline. Now, your dark triad. Dark triad is much, much worse. First thing is, dark triad, they know exactly who they are. They absolutely, all the time, they know who they are. There's no doubt about that. Dark triads are extremely firmly fixed in their self-ideation. They know exactly who they are. Now, dark triad itself is taken as being a mixture, usually subclinical, but never mind, of narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy, right? Now, narcissism is that thing, you're the center of the world, you have to get everything right, everything has to come to you, everybody has to pay you attention, all that kind of stuff. And to a certain extent, under limited control, narcissism is a good thing. It gets you up in the morning, it'll get you to polish your shoes so that you look well, brush your hair, which I forgot to do. That sort of thing, and a level of controlled narcissism that we might call mild vanity. This is fine, and sometimes it goes a bit further. Most actors and actresses are pretty narcissistic, but that doesn't make them bad people. They're just very self-focused and that's what they have to be to have the careers that they do. I've worked with a lot of actors in the past, I was a photographer, and they have a very weird self-ideation, which is almost like a replaceable one, that when they inhabit a character, it's like, that's their self, that becomes their self, and that's their self-ideation. And it's remarkable to watch. And interestingly, a lot of actors, when they're out of role, you know, they're like milk. They're like water, you know, they're completely, it's like, who is this person? You know, I mean, this is a person that, you know, it's absolutely fantastic on screen or on stage, and you're like, wow. And then there's this mild wee person, you know. It's an act, you know, but they're able to do it, and it's really quite remarkable how they do it. Anyway, the second component of Dark Triad is Machiavellianism. Now, Niccolo Machiavelli, was a Renaissance writer. He was really a journalist. He was commissioned to write the life of Cesare de Borgia, and he turned it into what is considered to be one of the original works of political science, because he really studied Borgia's motives and his actions, and took a great deal of time and interest in figuring out what exactly was going on here. Now, let's be quite clear, Cesare de Borgia was a monster, an absolute monster, but that level of monstrosity was actually quite normal if you happened to be a Renaissance prince. These people ruled by fear. That's simple, you know. They didn't. When you come to a little later and you're talking about the Medicis, well, the Medicis, they were actually thrown out of Florence, but by and large, the Florentines really liked him, and in the end, they brought him back. Borgia wasn't like that. He exemplarized this idea of the end justifies the means. You know, if I get what I want, then whatever I have to do to get it, that's okay. That's okay. Just like Stalin, Mao, all the rest of these people, Hitler, absolutely don't care a monkey's who gets in the way, as long as I get what I want. And it's the same as Italian gang bosses, mafia bosses, Al Capone, you know, Capone, sorry. It's all about, I get what I want, doesn't matter about the collateral damage. They don't matter. They're in the way. These people don't care if a few toes get trodden on, getting a job done, or even if there's a few bodies left in the woods. And so, yeah, you know, if you're looking for a fixer, somebody will sort things out for you, and that's your boy. You just better hope that he doesn't do anything that's going to come back to reflect on you. That's your Machiavellian. A psychopath, the classic psychopath, psychopathy is characterized by a sheer absence, not a lack, but a sheer absence of any kind of empathy at all. They absolutely do not empathize with other people. They don't empathize with anything or anyone. They don't care. When Lance Armstrong was caught doping, you know, in an interview later he said, I would do it again. They don't care about the morality of what they've done. They only care about getting caught. You know, they are the classic, that classic amoral person. And they are immoral. That they don't actually give a monkeys. Sorry about the dogs. Give a monkeys if people get harmed or, you know, and get damaged in the way. I mean, they're not usually actually killers, although most serial killers are actually psychopaths, but they don't care. You know, again, because of my background, I met several of these people, and we know what they were because they were all convicted murderers, okay? And they're the most terrifying people you'll ever meet. You know, they've just got this, you know, they don't care. They've got a look about them, and it's like they would crush you like a gnat. You know, they would. If it suited their ends to off you, right there and then, they would do it. Now, when these all come together, that is psychopathy, Machiavellianism, and narcissism, you get the Dark Triad. And the example I used was Meghan Markle, but there's been loads of them. If you're a reader and you like Vladimir Nabokov, for example, I can't say it, never mind. Then his character in the novel Lolita, Humbert, is a classic Dark Triad. He doesn't care how much damage he does. He falls for this underage girl and he has her. And he doesn't give a damn about the morality, he doesn't give a damn about the mores. He fixes everything, he kills her mother. It's just, you know, it's wall to wall, that book. It's wall to wall, and it's horrifying. Actually, about the least horrifying thing about it is this age difference thing. Because actually, this man is a complete monster. He's an absolute monster. And That's your classic dark triad. Lady Macbeth, classic dark triad. Completely manipulative. Didn't care. No, just wanted to get her own way. And I consider that Meghan Markle is one of that clan. Now, the third example I want to use of to talk about ideation is something completely different, and it's autogynephilia. And I'm not using this because we're always going on about autogynephilia here, but because it is actually a very good example. In autogynephilia, self-ideation is neither shattered as it is in borderline, nor really intensely fixed as it is in dark triad. It's bilocated. It has two locations, which is really interesting. There are two people inside someone with clinical autogynephilia's head. There's the host, right? And then there's this other thing which we call the erotic target location error, but that becomes a person. We all have erotic targets, right? And I don't care what feminists say, we all do it. And what we do is we create a model in our mind of the kind of woman, if you're a man, a straight man, that you're attracted to. And me, okay, I like long hair, I like brown skin, sallow skin, Italianate you might call it, Mediterranean. I like almond-shaped eyes, high cheekbones, wide mouth, that's my look, that's the ones I like. And if you look back to my childhood, when I was growing up, then Sophia Loren and women very like her, facially at least, were the big stars. They were really like, yeah, that's a real icon of beauty, this really ravishing Italianate looks, Sophia Loren was perhaps the absolute pinnacle of this, but there were plenty of them. I mean, there were loads of them. If you went a generation before me, they probably like blondes with blue eyes and big bottoms. It's Marilyn Monroe. So there's a big cultural influence in this, and it's very interesting that happens. It's not really the point here, but we invent this person that we project out into the world, and that's the kind of girl I like, and of course it's reinforced by positive experience. So if you have good experiences with girls like that, oh yeah, they're nice, I'll try and. So you see a girl like that, you say, oh, maybe I'll introduce myself, maybe I'll try and get a date. It's all fair enough, What the problem is in autogynephilia, in an erotic target location error, is this particular one. There are different types of this particular one. The target is located inside the self. So instead of being outside out there, and you're looking for someone, you're looking for someone who matches it, then it's inside in here. It's part of you. And that's not good. Because now you have two personalities. You have the personality of the person to whom you are, theoretically attracted, and the personality of you yourself, and they're in conflict. So you have these two loci, or loci, not the god, loci for self-ideation, which is impossible to contain. You can't have that in one person. It's the two of them, It's not possible. You can't do that. So there's a conflict. There's going to be this real conflict between the two, and somehow that has to be managed. And classically in autogynephilia, it was managed by part-time cross-dressing and things like that, and people would devote part of their lives in secret to exercising this ETLE as themselves, and then go back to their normal lives for the rest of the time. And then that became, our more permissive society allowed that to be more public, and then so you got Eddie Izzard, and he went, you can see what happens when you do that, If you give the ETLE enough rope, she'll hang you. It's that simple. She will. She'll rub you out. So, in the end, in autogynephilia, one of them is going to have to be snuffed. Either the host gets snuffed, or the ETLE does. And actually, it seems to be that it's easier just to get rid of the host. But we have a situation where in autogynephilia, it's really quite a unique way of looking at this, and it shows you how demanding your self-ideation is. You can't have two of them in one head. It doesn't work. It can't be made to work. You have to either, it's like for autogynephils, it's like you keep it like a dog on a leash, in a kennel, and then once in a while you let it out, or you say, right, one of these is going to have to go. And as I say, it does appear that it's easier to get rid of the male host. I have no idea why that is. Certainly some of the people who are my watchers who are autogynephilic and out and open about it, they could maybe come in here and discuss in the comments about why it was easier just to terminate the male host and allow the ETLE to take over than the other way around. I have no idea why that is. It's possible we just don't see the other ones because they fix it. So anyway, that's self-ideation. It's very, very important, and there are a number of different ways of looking at it, and I hope I've tried to give you some kind of understanding of what it is. So you look back to Freud with the id, the ego, and the superego, and it might be that there's some relationship between the ETLE and the id that makes it very, very powerful, and that the ego and the superego, which would, in this case, represent or be related to the host, just doesn't have the power to control this because it's so elemental, it's so fundamental. The id is really, if you ever saw a film, an extremely good film with a young Leslie Nielsen in it called Forbidden Planet, and obviously somebody had been reading up on it. It's Freud, I wrote this excellent sci-fi. It's a black and white, but it's one of the great classic sci-fis of all time, and it basically tells the story of how humans discovered this planet, and on it was a machine that multiplied the power of the brain, and the guy who did this, lived there with his beautiful daughter, of course, nobody else, and a robot called Robbie. He'd had his brain power increased massively over what was normal for humans. Most humans couldn't do this. He'd taken years to do it. But what he didn't realize, and what's led to the audience slowly, is that while he was this super rational, super intelligent person, being, his id was also far, far, far more powerful. It was really powerful, aggressive, dangerous thing that killed people, and it created invisible psychic monsters, which were the monsters of the id, and it's really worth having a quick look at that if you're interested in this sort of thing, the id and so on. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. Self-ideation, we will do more on it, and Freud will certainly do more on as well, because Freud he gets an awful bad time because he wasn't a psychometrist. He didn't believe, or he didn't have access to psychometry. He didn't work that way. He was a classic life scientist. He observed and wrote down what he observed, and then went, I wonder, which is how Darwin worked. You can't turn around and say that Freud's method was all wrong, and then, because everybody knows that Darwin was right. So there's some issues there. Anyway, enough of that for the moment, and self-ideation, 3 examples of, and here again, down below, is the URL. And please, again, please, people are going to have to help out. You're going to have to subscribe. If you like this shit, please subscribe. Chuck in something. Buy me a coffee. Whatever. It doesn't have to be a lot, but if enough of you do it, it will allow me to continue to do this. Because if not, if I can't continue to do this, if I can't survive doing this, then I'll have to go back to something like teaching. I don't really want to do that, but hey, I can do it. I'm a qualified teacher. So I can do that, and I won't have time to do these videos. Because these videos, they take a long time, You think, you see 20 minutes of that old bore farting on as he does, but the fact is, that 20 minutes maybe took 3 days, 4 days, maybe even a week, thinking about, writing down notes, researching, just making sure I was right about what I was thinking. Does that bear out? It takes a long time, It takes a lot of work. And I try and make them as entertaining and as as fun as possible, because that's the way I do when I lecture. I try and make life fun for the students. But it still takes time, and time has to be paid for. Take care. May your gods go with you. I love you all. Take care. Bye.